This is Cuomo-gate because Andrew Cuomo set up this commission to investigate corruption anywhere. He said publicly, anywhere it leads, legislature, executive branch, his office, etc. 25 members were appointed. They were all deputized under the law by the Attorney General with prosecutorial power to investigate, including issue subpoenas, compel testimony, documents, etc. Okay, they start doing their jobs, and all of a sudden the breadcrumbs start leading directly to the governor's office and to him, and he automatically then cut it off. He actually stopped the commission, shut it down, and cut a deal with the legislature.
All right, that's Rob Astorino, folks, on this show earlier in the week. Yesterday we had Governor Pataki talking about this and also talking about Chris Christie's non-endorsement of Rob Astorino. Joining us now is senior editor of City Journal and a senior fellow at the Manhattan Institute, Stephen Malanga, and welcome. Good to see you.
How are you? Good
Thank
to see
you for coming in. All right. Rob Astorino is a man who is a two-time winner as Westchester County executive in a Democratic area, county. One with Latinos, mass appeal, and now you have this scandal with Governor Cuomo, his own commission that he appointed, the Moreland Commission, to weed out corruption. Now it turns out he might have been a little corrupt within the commission. And you got Governor Chris Christie, head of the Republican Governors Association, saying, I'm not going to support Astorino. It's a lost cause. It's like a soap opera. This whole thing is or a circus. What's going on here?
Well, I think one of the things is that, ironically, because Christie, of course, is a Northeast Republican, is that the Republican Party is giving up to a larger extent on Northeastern Republicans. The same thing is going on in New Jersey, where Jeff Bell, the Senate candidate, has pulled much closer to Cory Booker than anyone would have thought. And he's openly complaining in all his speeches that the Republicans won't even return his phone calls.
Right.
So, but Christie, of course, is from the Northeast, so it's kind of funny that the National Republican Party is sort of saying the Northeast is a lost cause, except, of course, it's not obviously a lost cause. And Christie illustrates that better than anybody.
Yeah, and by the way, Ed Rollins, who's been around forever, and that's not to his detriment, that's to his advantage, said yesterday on this show that he's never, ever in politics, ever seen anything like what Christie has done to Rob Astorino.
Yeah, I think particularly because there's a little bit of a strange dynamic going on here too, because Christie and Cuomo, even though they're from different parties, are kind of like buddies, and so you see this playing out also. But you see, Christie has a convenient excuse, if you will, and that is that it is 2014. There are Republican governor races around the country. Scott Walker is in a really tough race. There are Republican senatorial opportunities. So, I mean, his point is we're going where we think we have the most opportunity. But clearly, with what's going on with Cuomo right now, if there's ever an opportunity, it would be in the aftermath of this.
Of course, the media ran wild with Bridgegate, as okay. Now we have this Cuomo story. And certainly CNN hasn't gone anywhere near it, or at least last I looked, they haven't. And some say even Rob Astorino said it might be because his brother works there. But other networks are staying away from it as well. You would think a scandal of this magnitude, where we also have federal investigation, prosecutors looking into a grand jury convened, would be huge news. This is a Cuomo. This is a guy who wants to run for president like Christie supposedly wants to run for president. Nothing.
The disparity is astounding. First of all, one of the things I counted up.
And you wrote a great piece, I should point out, at cityjournal.org. Yeah.
Right. So in the aftermath, in the week after the Bridgegate scandals came out, 500 newspapers outside of New Jersey mentioned Bridgegate. I mean, multiple times. The Washington Post mentioned Bridgegate 35 times. They had yet to, within the first week of the Cuomo gate, if you will, mention it once.
Yeah.
CNN did more than 100 mentions of Bridgegate in the first week, including big headlines like, is Christie a bully, and stuff like that.
Right, oh, I remember.
So the disparity has been absolutely astounding, and so you could justify CNN, by saying, well, of course, his brother's there, but CNN's a 24-hour news network. His brother's on in the morning.
Well, you can explain it. You can't justify it.
You can explain it.
I mean, all they got to do is give it to another anchor or say full disclosure, or whatever.
But they're not alone.
No,
it is absolutely astounding. I mean, there were.
And is this strictly a? I'm sorry to interrupt. Is this strictly a? Do you believe a Democrat, Republican media
Well,
bias, or is there more to it here?
First of all, I do think that has something to do with it, because if you look, and for instance, again, the surveys of newsrooms across America continue to show that Democratic registrations
Absolutely.
are far higher. So I do think that's an element. I also think that Christie is a tempting target. He makes himself a tempting target with his style.
You mean his big mouth?
Although
Yeah.
the idea that Christie would be a bully, and we need to look at that, but we're not going to ask the question about whether Cuomo is
He's a bully. Yeah.
I find that strikes me as pretty funny too. But the coverage is wildly disproportionate. And when you come right down to it, look, what happened in Bridgegate was a seedy political scandal, but it was for political retribution. The idea of shutting down a corruption scandal when they get too close to your own allies seems to me to be much worse.
All right, well, so tell us what you think is going to happen here, or where we are with the investigation. I know Astorino wants not only a federal investigation, but a state, because in case some federal laws were not broken, but state laws were broken, and he believes that everybody's too involved and too close to it. We need a special prosecutor, which is not going to happen with this Justice Department, I don't believe.
Right, I don't think it will happen, but I do think we have to rely on the U.S. Attorney for Manhattan, who said he was going to investigate this, and came out very strongly and said there is the possibility, and the reason I'm jumping into this is there is the possibility that shutting down an investigation could be a criminal interference, and we have to hold him to. He says his enthusiasm for this investigation. So I think that he's a big piece of this. But we all know that investigations take a very long time.
After the election,
it's unlikely anything is going to burst onto the scene anytime soon. But the irony of all of this is, you remember 4 years ago, the election in New York. A lot of the election was about corruption. I mean, people were being indicted left and right. Left and right.
Yep.
And Cuomo said this was about corruption. The polls show that the voters wanted this to be about corruption. So that's kind of the irony here. Now, they don't seem to be as enthusiastic about the issue of corruption right now, because they're more worried about basic bread and butter issues, the economy and so forth.
So we got 30 seconds. Does Astorino, does he, I guess it depends on the timing of the investigation and what they find?
Yeah, and I just don't imagine that anything is going to come out before the election. I mean, look, he's a good candidate, but he's never run statewide before, and unfortunately, he's not getting a lot of the Republican money.
And with the Christie saying what he said and holding purse strings the way he's holding them, it's not going to help his cause at all.
It'll be tough.
Steve, thank you very much.
My
Great
pleasure.
seeing you. Thank you
care.
for coming by. Stephen Malanga, ladies and gentlemen, Manhattan Institute. All right, folks. Before we go, we want to know from you.